This week we look at poverty from a theological perspective. In our society and in the media, poverty is usually only described in economic terms, how much money an individual or a household earns. And on that basis, we determine whether or not a person can be considered poor. However, as Christians, we recognize that people cannot be so easily categorized, simply lined up and measured according to some arbitrary standard called the poverty line. So we look this week to three different authors who approach the topic in three unique ways. Ron Sider, a professor of Christian ethics and a prolific author on issues of poverty, looks at what the Bible says to us about poverty and how we are to respond to those who are poor from a biblical perspective. Jayakumar Christian, a community developer in India, takes a more holistic view, examining the ways in which poverty impacts people spiritually, psychologically, sociologically, and economically. And what emerges from his analysis is that poverty is a web of forces that entrap a person in a net of oppression and poverty. And our challenge from Christians' perspective is to help people contend with that net in life-affirming ways. Finally, we look at Howard Thurman, who refers to the poor as the disinherited. Thurman was an African-American Christian who grew up in the segregated South, but who in the 1940s became the pastor of the first consciously interracial church in the United States. He also was a pastor and counselor and mentor to many of the early civil rights leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King. His book, the one we're reading this week, Jesus and the Disinherited, was said to be a book that King regularly referred to as his thoughts on justice and oppression developed. As we look at these authors, what will emerge for us is a much more robust understanding of what exactly poverty is. As such, our approach and interaction with those who are considered or who consider themselves to be poor should be altered to reflect this more holistic understanding. Knowing that the poor are not just people who live above or below some arbitrary line, how are we to think of them, and how are we to work for the reversal and alleviation of the forces that afflict and entangle them? That's what we look at this week. I look forward to exploring and learning with you as we explore this topic that should be central to any urban theology.